They say storms don't just flood houses, they drown arrogance. The night she tore down my sandbag wall, I already knew what was coming. By morning, the flood had carried away her $1 million car, twisted and mangled in the creek, like karma made visible. My name's David Miller, and when I moved into Maple Creek Estates, I thought I was buying peace. After 25 years working with the Army Corps of Engineers, I'd earned some calm. I'd spent half my life knee-deep in blueprints and flood control projects, concrete, steel, and long nights keeping other people's homes dry. I figured retirement would finally let me breathe. A small house, quiet mornings, maybe some coffee on a porch that didn't overlook chaos. But instead, I bought front-row seats to the kind of arrogance only a homeowners association could afford. The place looked perfect. Sunlit cul-de-sacs, trimmed lawns, kids riding bikes with their helmets hanging from the handlebars. The kind of neighborhood that sells peace of mind in the brochure. What it didn't mention was the creek, the real Maple Creek sliding behind our backyards like a sleeping snake. Pretty from a distance, sure, but I saw the slope, the dip in every lawn, the way water would funnel right into our foundations when the sky decided to open up. I knew trouble when I saw it. At the first HOA meeting, I brought it up. I even brought maps. Old habits die hard. Showed everyone how runoff from the hill would race straight toward us. Explained that the FEMA flood zone had been quietly redesignated after some clever lobbying. I didn't yell. I didn't wave my arms. I just laid it out like I'd done 100 times before. That's when I met her Avery Lopez. HOA president, mid-50s, perfect hair pearls, and a smile sharp enough to cut through drywall. She leaned back in her chair and said, "Mr. Miller, we appreciate your enthusiasm, but this community was designed by professionals. Let's not spread unnecessary alarm." Some people chuckled. Others stared at their lemonade. I could feel it, the unspoken rule. Don't rock the boat if you want to fit in. I realized arguing with Avery was like arguing with the tide. Pointless. So I stopped, at least out loud. Instead, I prepared. Quietly. I bought sandbags, stored them in the garage, walked my property with a contractor's level, mapped the runoff paths. It wasn't paranoia, it was muscle memory. Then came the forecast, a tropical system pushing north. The kind that doesn't blow through, just sits there and wrings itself out. I spent the morning stacking sandbags in a crescent along my fence. Sweat ran down my neck even with the cool wind, but I kept going. Those bags were the difference between a dry floor and a ruined life. That's when Avery's silver SUV pulled up spotless as ever. The window slid down with a hiss. "Mr. Miller," she said sweetly. "What are those?" "Sandbags, ma'am," I said, not looking up. "Storm's coming." She stepped out, white sneakers, HOA badge, clipped like a sheriff's star. "You can't just put those out," she snapped. "They're unsightly. They violate landscaping guidelines." I straightened, wiped my hands. "So do half the driveways around here, but I don't complain." "This is serious," she said, eyes narrowing. "We can't have residents panicking others with doomsday props. It lowers confidence in property values." I pointed toward the darkening sky. "Give it 12 hours. That creek's gonna climb right into our backyards." "The board hasn't approved them," she said. "Remove them or face a citation." I looked her dead in the eye. "Do what you have to. I'm not letting floodwater walk through my living room so the neighborhood can look pretty." She left in a spray of gravel, and I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. That night thunder rolled in from the horizon. The wind pushed against my windows, and I sat watching the creek turn restless under the porch light. Avery's house sat 2 lots up closer to the bend. Her $1 million car gleamed under the garage light, untouched, unmoved. She thought her bylaws could hold back a storm. Around midnight, I heard something scraping, dragging. I killed the porch light, eased to the window. 2 figures moved in the dark shapes, bending and heaving. Then I saw her. Avery Lopez, pearls glinting even in the rain, directing her teenage nephew like a general. They were taking my sandbags, hauling them away, kicking them down the slope. "Teach him a lesson," she said, voice faint through the mic of my porch camera. I hit record. I didn't shout. I didn't stop her. I just stood there watching as she dismantled my defense 1 bag at a time. By the time they left, 1/3 of my barrier was gone. An hour later, the sky opened up. Rain hammered the roof like gunfire water racing across the yard. The gaps where my sandbags had been turned into rivers. I tried to fix it, hauling old split bags from the shed, but it was useless. Every bag I laid down was ripped apart by the flow. My back screamed, my boots sank into mud, and I realized I couldn't fight both the storm and her sabotage. By dawn, the power was out, the creek roaring like a freight train. When I finally stepped outside, my yard was a shallow lake, but my house still stood. Barely. Then I saw it down at the bend, Avery's luxury car, half submerged, smashed against two trees, white paint streaked with mud. It looked less like a vehicle and more like a tombstone for pride. Neighbors gathered, whispering, filming, asking if anyone was inside. Firefighters confirmed it was empty, but the damage was done. The symbol of her perfection had drowned in the very water she'd ignored. When the police came by, clipboard in hand, I didn't rant. I just handed over the USB drive. "You'll want to see this," I said. That footage spread faster than the flood itself. By afternoon, people were knocking on my door asking if it was true. I didn't answer directly. I didn't have to. Word got around. And that evening, a notice appeared in every mailbox. Emergency HOA meeting, mandatory attendance. The clubhouse was packed. Usually a dozen people showed up to these things. That night the air buzzed like a storm still trapped inside. Avery walked in, late makeup, gone hair flat, but still clinging to her posture of authority. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "I want to reassure you." Kathy Tran, a young mom from across the street, cut her off. "My yard was inches from flooding. We carried our toddler upstairs at 2 a.m. because of you." "You talk about reassurance." Murmurs rose. Avery blinked, thrown off. "I don't know what you mean." I stood up. "She knows exactly what you mean." Her eyes found me. "David, this isn't the time for personal vendettas." I held up the USB. "I have footage. Time-stamped. Audio included. You and your nephew dragging away my sandbags hours before the storm hit. You laughed. You said, 'Teach him a lesson.' Well, the lesson came Avery, but it didn't land on me." The room erupted. Voices shouting, chairs scraping. Avery's face drained of color. Lies, she barked, but her voice cracked. I handed the drive to Alan Bishop, the HOA treasurer. "Play it." A few seconds later, the projector lit up. Night vision footage filled the wall. Avery, unmistakable pearls glowing, hauling sandbags, her nephew struggling beside her, the sound of her own words echoing through the speakers. "Teach him a lesson." When the video ended, no one moved. Then Kathy spoke again, quiet but fierce. "You nearly drowned us to make a point." Greg Stanton, the retired insurance broker, stood. She put property values over human safety. The voices piled on, wave after wave, years of resentment surfacing, fines, threats, humiliation, it all came crashing down at once. Alan Bishop finally raised a trembling hand. "Avery Lopez, you've crossed a line. Effective immediately. I'm calling for your suspension as HOA president pending removal." Applause erupted, not polite, not hesitant, but raw and angry. Avery tried to shout over it. "You can't do this. I am the HOA." "No," I said, stepping forward. "You built a facade. But nature doesn't bow to bylaws, and now neither do we." She froze, eyes darting around for support. There was none. The clipboard loyalists looked away. She grabbed her bag and stormed out, door slamming behind her like a final clap of thunder. When the meeting broke up, no one smiled. It wasn't victory, it was relief. The storm had taken her car. We'd taken back our voices. That night, sitting on my porch, the neighborhood still smelled of mud and gasoline. I watched the creek slide by, calmer now, its surface reflecting the broken moonlight. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt empty. A few days later, a letter showed up in my mailbox. No return address, just one line in shaky handwriting. "Don't share the footage. I'll resign quietly. Let me leave with what dignity I have left." I stared at it for a long time. For the first time she sounded human, fragile even. But pity doesn't rewrite truth. I folded the letter and said quietly to myself, "You don't get to decide that anymore." The HOA moved on without her. We built a safety committee, real emergency protocols, drainage upgrades. For the first time, people cared more about preparation than perfection. The same neighbors who once feared citations now hauled sandbags beside me. Funny how it takes a flood to wash away fear. A few weeks later, Avery's house went up for sale. No announcement, no open house, just a quiet sign in the yard. When she left, no one waved goodbye. The creek still murmurs behind our homes, but the sound doesn't scare me anymore. It reminds me, because storms don't just test buildings, they test people. And some, like Avery Lopez, fail spectacularly. Lesson? Arrogance can build walls, but only humility keeps them standing.